Okay, so we're holding here with Taaruvot Siman Kuf Beis Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin. We began to discuss a little bit the uniqueness of this Isser, how it is different than Birya, how it is different in some ways from a Chaticha Ruyu Liskabet. In some ways it is more Chomer, right? We said that it applies to also Isur Derabanan. We're Machmir even if there's a suffix. And according to some, even if there's a Sveika. Nevertheless, it does not apply to Min B'She'eno Minui. So we have various limitations here. Something that is a Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, at some point it will become Mutter. It will not have the traditional Bitul of Roiv. And the question is why? What is exactly the Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin? The simple explanation given by Rashi is you can have it anyway at some point. It's going to be mutter. So since this tarovis will be mutter, something that will be mutter automatically at some point, the halachas of bittul do not apply to it. This is of course the Rabbanan. Okay, this is the simple explanation. Did you learn another explanation?
No.
Did you go into another one? No. Any other? I mean, there is a Ran that we discussed. Yeah. And there may be sometimes a nafkamina between one explanation and another. So it's always good to learn the various explanations given. The Ran gets into the min b'mino issue. That in essence, min b'mino do not cancel each other out. Because if anything, when two of the same are together, they strengthen each other. Remember that? With Rabbi Yehuda, with Dam. In essence, even though we paskin min b'mino is boto b'roiv, in essence, the idea behind at least the shita that holds that they're not bottle is that one strengthens the other, one does not cancel the other, or one does not weaken the other. Whereas min b'she'eno minoi, you have the opposite. You do not have the strengthening of each other, two different kinds, two opposing forces. So you have one weakening the other. So the Ran says in the Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, this is a form of min b'minoi, because at some point you're going to have this which is now different. And by the sheer fact that one is different, one is Asr and one is Mutter, it's already a form of Min B'Shein. Right? One is Mutter and one is Asr. Nevertheless, at some point that Asr will be like the Heter. So, since it will be, it is already like, resembles more the Heter. So in a Min B'Mino situation, they're pretty much very, very similar. Because at some point, that which is dissimilar right now, it's Asr, okay, will be a heter, so we treat it as the shita that holds that min b'minu is not bottle. In other words, we apply that reasoning of that one strengthens the other. In a sense, that's what the Ran is saying. We apply it over here, that we say, you know what? It's a davar sheyesh lo matirin, bittul does not apply. That what appears to be Asr right now, and therefore it's a form of min b'she'eno mino, is really a min b'mino because it will be in the same, it will be exactly the same as the other item in the pot in the mixture. It will be mutter, so it will be a form of like and like that strengthens each other, that does not cancel each other. That's what he wants to say. It's a more creative explanation. Rashi says simple, Why say bittul when you can just wait? Wait. Once you could wait for something, once you can eat it be'iter, why eat it be'heter, why eat it be'isur? The Ran applies the more creative approach of strengthening or weakening when it comes to bittul. Here, it is not really weakening it, because it will eventually be of the same. If it will eventually be of the same, we apply the reasoning that we applied according to the shita that holds min b'mino is not bottle, that it's one of the same, it strengthens, it does not weaken, and therefore the halacha of bittul does not apply to it. And therefore, when you have min b'she'eno minoi, which is unique to davar sheyesh lo matirin, right? When you have a min b'she'eno minoi, you don't have that reason anymore because they are now and will always remain very different. According to the Ran, okay? At least according to the Ran, right? When it's a min b'she'eno minoi, then they are intrinsically different and will remain different, and that's why min b'she'en aminu nadava sheyesh lo matirim is batal. What about according to Rashi? What about according to the simple pshat? We'll just wait. Why is min b'she'en aminoi batal? Why don't we say dava sheyesh lo matirin by min b'she'en amin according to the simple understanding? Any suggestions? I mean, what's the idea?
I'm thinking about it.
What's the idea behind min she'en amino? The Ran is simple, based on what he explained. It makes sense. But why about according to Rashi? It's according to the simple, basic explanation of something eventually will become mutter. I think the Taz and Shach discussed it a little bit, if I recall. Didn't have a chance to review all the Noise Kalim, all the commentaries. There's quite a bit of here. There's a lot of Gro, there's a lot of Rabbi Kiva and this Siman. Pischei Tshuva here and there, Nekudas HaKesef, Pri Chodesh, Kritzur Place. Everybody has something to say about something in this. It's very interesting. So you need time. If you really want to cover everything, you really want to do a good job, and look at the Mishnayos, look at the Torah, look at the Gemaras, where do they get this thing? A lot of the halachas over here are not straight from the Gemara, by the way. We're going to see quite a long Ramah. All kinds of halachas that are taken from a Mordechai, taken from a Rashba, of course, but not necessarily that the Mekor is in the Gemara, in the Sugya. There is one that there's a Rabbeinu Tam possibly in the Gemara, but not straight from the Gemara. So it's very interesting, where does everybody take their halacha from? If you really want to go to the Mekor, which is the way to do it, where's the Mekor of the halacha? In other words, what are the various opinions? Deichatimsa. He says it's fascinating, but it takes time. But that's the correct way to do it if you want to have a good understanding of the entire Sugya. So I think it's the Torah's Chatas bringing it down, in the Shach and Taz discuss it. The heter over here in the Bitul, min b'she'eno minoi, is classified, is described based on the majority. Okay, in other words, it does not retain really its own identity anymore. Whenever you have min b'she'eno minoi, and you have, of course, a majority of something else.
So we'd have to have 60.
Right. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. So when you have a majority of something, that which is bottle here, that item that is the issue over here, that which is bottle, will not retain its own identity ever. In other words, it is already called. It already takes on the name of the enominoi. Of that which is the majority, right? So because it's being already called al shem hamin ha'acher, as the Torah's Chata says, which is the rov of Taaroves, it does not appear like heter that is chal al isur. In other words, right now, in a situation where you have a davar sheyesh lo matirin, so you have a heter which is a potential heter on an isur. When? At a certain time. And min b'she'eno minoi, it loses its identity completely, he says. It is called al shem, the other min, which is the Taaruvot already. It takes on a completely different identity. It is no longer itself. The majority gives it a different identity. That's how the Torah is called, even though I don't think the Taz likes that explanation. Says it's not
difficult because it sounds like it's in this bottle. The reason why it can be bottle.
Yeah. The Taz has a little bit of a problem with saying, that doesn't explain it enough. He has a hard time with, why. So I can understand you also have a hard time figuring out. But that's the Torah's Chad. That's the way he explains that it's already at the point of bitul, at the point of the mixture of the Taaroves, it's already taking on another identity. All right, that's basically it. Okay, we went on to explain.
Now, the truth of the matter is, first of all, the cell has that isser of the date or whatever.
Right.
And there's an isser that is temporary. That's tied to time.
Right.
Interesting.
All right. So anyway, the example that the Mechaber gave us of a davar sheyesh lo matirin, at least the first example, was a beitza shenoldu b'yontov, that of course cannot be eaten on the Yontov, but it will be good lemochar, following day. So it got mixed up, and we said it makes no difference if it was intact or trufa. It's not batal afilu be'elef.
Trufa again was scrambled?
Scrambled. The afilu sofek im noldu beyontov, even the suffix here. And what is the suffix? The suffix here relates to not if this is a kosher egg or not. This is a suffix in the halacha of muktzeh, in the halacha of noilad. In this fact, was it born noilad b'yontev or not? It makes a difference what the suffix is. If something is a suffix isser or not, it's a different halacha altogether. Here it's a suffix, and this is important. There's a whole elaboration here in the Achronim, I think, about what makes this kind of a suffix different. Here's the suffix is whether it was in Yontev or not. That's all. And he got mixed up. Asuros. In Sarva Becheres Asuros, it still applies. But of course, if it's mixed with another kind, it's Betela B'Shishin. So here, what do we see? That even if there's a suffix, legabe the Isur itself, makes no difference, because Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, as the Rishonim and Achronim for sure explain, it may not really make a difference how many Sfeikas according to some you have. Once it's a Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, you might as well wait. Whereas others will say, no. Maybe Sfeika would make the whole issue over here less of an issue, because Sfeik is something very, very strong, as we will eventually learn. And we will also talk about eventually the whole koyach of Sfeik, which is a very interesting, fascinating area. What's the koyach of Sfeik? What makes Sfeik mutter in some cases, where in a suffix itself is not mutter? Have you seen that, Ilan?
Yeah, sure.
Have you ever thought about it or discussed that?
It goes down to 25%.
Are you talking statistically now?
Well, it goes down to 25%.
What's
you have first of all, the suffix, whether or not, so it's 50.
Okay.
And then you take the 50 of yes, and that goes down to 50
right.
again. So ultimately, 25 against 75.
Yeah. Okay, so that's not so partial because they don't.
Yeah.
So there's a machlokes in the Rishonim, I believe it is, as to what's the koyach of Sfeik. Is it because of roiv? Or is it that here there's no suffix whatsoever once you have a Sfeika? That the Torah did not have this in mind. This is not a suffix at all. Once you have a suffix, in other words, what's happening when you have a Sfeika? What is the metzias? What allows the situation to be almost completely a non-issue? That allows it to be mutter in some cases. But anyway, so that would be a possibility even by Davar Sheyesh Lo Matir. But according to others, the whole idea behind Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin is that it will be mutter at some point. So even if you add many sfeikas to it, you cannot get rid of, you cannot eliminate the iser. You cannot make it mutter just because there's more sfeikas to it. In fact, you have one suffix is already a problem. Where ordinarily a suffix derabanan is lekula, right? Here we don't say that. See, that's the whole idea. So would a sfeika make a difference? Not necessarily.
Since the first suffix of these two sfeik using any kula.
Exactly, yeah. However, the Ramah did say that even though min b'she'eno mino is bottle, by Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, if you use that egg, lelabnoi, libnoi bo machol, or nosno megdera, letaken egdera, and it's specific for those two things. The egg was used to color. I guess this would be an example where you have making the challah, where you dip the dough to make a coating or coloring, or letaken akdera for actual consistency and for taste. In that case, even though now you have a min b'she'eno minoi, it's not betela. That's very interesting. What happened? What's different about this? The purpose of the use of the egg. Either we say min be'eno mino is not bottle, or it is. What difference does this egg in how it is being used? Why should there be any difference over here? So of course we need to look at the Shach and Taz to figure this one out. By itself, the Ramah doesn't really explain. It tells you Ayin Be'or HaChaim Siman Tuf Kuf Yud Gimel, actually, which is good to check out if you have a chance, because that's where really the halacha is discussed. The Mishnah Baruch, I think, also speaks about it over there. By that halacha of an egg in Yontav, Hilchas Yontav, of what do you do if it got mixed? We know what the halacha is about Beis Hashanah to be Yontav, but what happens if it got mixed? So here the Ramah doesn't really explain what the problem is. Just that in case it was used lelabnoi, or if it was used letakin atav shilak deira, you're going shemil'uhu betarnegoiles, or you filled it up with a chicken. Eina B'Teila. So what's the issue over here? The Shach says it's Chazusa. We're talking about Chazusa over here. Anything that is done for Chazusa is not bottle. Now, what about if it's not if it's Letakin Atavshil? Letakin Atavshil doesn't have anything to do with Chazusa. Chazusa, the word Chazusa means appearance. And appearance is something that is discussed in the Gemara in Baba Kama. It is a sugya. There is something called Chazusa. But as we covered last week, Lemaskana today in Hilchos Yore Deah, Basar, Taaruvot, Chazusa doesn't really come up. You will hear about Reicha. You know what Reicha is? The vapor, the aroma. You'll hear perhaps about Zeya. Remember Zeya? Did you learn about Zeya a little bit? Okay, maybe it's not whether we're machmir or not. It's something to consider. Tam we know, be'in for sure we know. Then there's something in between tam and be'in called mamoshes. It's not the realistic, but something is there. Okay, all of this we discuss and we can understand. Is the issue there? This is not there. But what's chazusa? Oh, by the way, we also spoke about Davar Maimed. Yes, Davar Maimed has something to contribute. But Davar Maimed at least is something. It's not just a flavor, it's more than a flavor. It is a part of the Easter is there. The only thing is that it's not bottle, but there's something there. So was there anything else? I mean, there's all of various chumras here and there.
Well, why should the colors?
Because chazusa is not anything. Chazusa really is nothing.
Well, you see with your eyes.
It's just a color. And when it comes to Isurim, as the Meforshim explained, it's tam that the Torah was makpid on, not color. Yeah. That's the way Meforshim explained. Over there, the Gro has a whole write-up about this. He says, we're not machmer with chazusa because the only Torah is only machmer on tam, and chazusa only came up by Isurei Hano in the Gemara there. And only, as I think the Rishonim explain, only when it has to do with color, something that is used to color.
So it's not
it has to be something that's
incidentally,
right, not incidental. It has to be something that its purpose is to color. Oh, its purpose is to color. Then the chazusa makes a difference because that's the purpose is to color it.
But isn't that what we're talking about?
No, not really. Not really. I mean, the Shach explains that we're borrowing the concept of chazusa for davar sheyesh lo matir in here. That because it's a form of chazusa, so if it's l'laben v'lo samachol, even though it's eino minoi, the Shach says it's a form. It's a form of chazusa, and therefore we're going to be machmer. We're applying that concept here too. Even though, it usually doesn't apply in Isurim, here it will apply. Okay. In other words, there's a certain chashivas over here. All right. What about the takin atavshil, takin akdeira? What's that? That's a little bit different. That, the Shach, I think this is the Shach also, the Beis Yosef explains too, that has to do with, that if it's letakin, it's more like a min b'minoi. Once something is letakin, once something is used, I need it, I'm using it for, it makes the actual big difference in tafshil, it becomes a min b'minoi, even though it's min b'she'eno minoi, but because it's an important ingredient that is used letakin esagdera, it is considered a form of min b'minoi, which is interesting. It's a chidush. That too. Why? Because of the importance of it. The Chachamim were makbid on this, or at least
what would be an example for tikkun?
It gives it the consistency. Perhaps it adds a lot to the flavoring. It's not just an ingredient. And let's talk about that example too. By the way, I did see. I don't remember who brings it down. Let me see if I wrote it down over here. I did see that if an egg fell, if they threw in an egg, the recipe calls for an egg, that it may be bottled. So that's why it's important to keep in mind that if an egg is used, but it would have to be only letakin and tagdero or lab libne bomachol. Stam an egg as an ingredient, it would be a she'eno mino. Yes, yeah. I did see that. I don't. Maybe as we go, I'll find it. I don't want to waste time just looking for it now. But since we're talking about an egg, it's important to keep in mind that that's what the Ramah is talking about. There's a question, however, on the Ramah, on the Mechaber, because the Beis Yosef or whatever is this halacha of letaken agdero, is this halacha of libnei bomachel, the way the Shach explains, that there's an issue here of chazusa, or there's an issue here of min beminoi, because it's bol letaken. Does that mean that I need both? When I'm putting something into the gdero or I'm doing something, do I need both for it not to be bottle, or is one sufficient? You follow me? You follow the question?
You mean as an ingredient and as a color?
Yeah. According to the Shach, and I think the Gross says too, that it's enough to have or chazuso or ovid letaima, the takin atafshel. One of the two will make it min beminoi, or will make it not bottle. Magen Avram seems to be saying that the mechaber, not here, the mechaber there, or the Ramah here, seem to imply that you need both conditions. Okay, so that's Magen Avram. Over there in Hilchos Yontav seems to say that the mechaber, and possibly the Ramah, or at least the mechaber actually, because he's talking about the mechaber. Magen was talking about the mechaber, you would need both conditions. If you have both conditions, it's ovid letama and there's a chazusa, the whole thing becomes a something more important, and it's not bottle, even though it's min b'shein aminoi.
Coloring, when normally we don't really.
Right, that's the question over here. We'll talk about that. What's going on over here? Apparently, the Gra is going to say, in other words, nobody argues with the din kimat here. But they will argue with the reasoning. Chazusa? Chazusa? We don't hold chazusa. In other words, yeah. Because by chazusa, the Gemara in Baba Kama brings it. That's what the sugya is, by chazusa. Coloring. Isur hano or not. And in the maskana, we don't really hold the chazusa is something. Chazusa lav milsa. It's not really a big thing. So the Minchas Kohen and the Pri Chodesh I saw are mekel b'derabanan and asur by deraisa.
That will be misbak, that will be tirim. Is it the oraisa?
No. I'm not saying that. I'm just talking about the Minchas Kohen and Pri Chodesh in dealing with chazusa.
In general.
I think in general, if I recall correctly, say that would be a chiluk between by derabanan and deraisa. And this only, why? Because it only relates to things that are done litzviyah, for coloration, for coloring. Something which is not oimid, something which is not done for tzviyah, something which has nothing to do with coloring, even though it gives it a chazusa, it's bottle. In other words, in Hilchas Isurim, we don't hold of chazusa. It doesn't, lo maile velo moirid. And wherever it was an issue, especially in the issue of the Gemara there, in Surah Hano, it had to do because it was made for coloring. And even then, I think the maskana is that we're not machmir, but they hold that we're machmir b'deraisa. They hold that you have to be machmir b'deraisa. But only because over there it had to do with that it was used for coloring. But stam, even though it gives it a chazusa, it's bottle. Pri Megadim, if you look at the Pri Megadim, he's machmir in chazusa. He holds that anytime you have a chazusa, it's like the Isser is be'ein, you could see it. But again, it's over here. As far as our halacha, not in general. I don't think he says that in general. The Pri Megadim is talking about our situation. It's like the Isser is be'ein. The Isser, he says, it's the Isser nikar. A Isser nikar. And it's like Nois and Tam, which is very interesting. He said, because the Isser is nikar, I can see it. So it's like Nois and Tam. That is why we were machmir here. No? Even though it's min b'sheino mino, I can see it. The Pri Megadim says, if I can see it, it's like it gives it flavor. Like in other isur that give flavor. That we're machmir, here we're machmir too. Mincha Yaakov says that this does not apply here. In other words, for chazus really is not the reason here. In other words, chazus in general is not a problem. But over here, we were machmir because it appears to be that the isur is there more than it's not. And therefore, it's a davar sheyesh lo matirin, nevertheless. Okay. So as we mentioned last time, the Dil Negar and the Gra is choylek and the Pri Chodesh and others, that the whole isser of chazusa in the Gemara is not a gavim macholas asuros, does not apply, and chazusa lav milsahu. Okay, so what does the Vilna Gaon say? Why are we machmir? What does he say? Why are we machmir in Hilchas Yontav? Why was the mechaber in the Rama? I mean, he's not choilek on that. He says it has nothing to do with chazusa. He says something that comes as taken is considered more like a min b'mino situation. It has a certain chashiva, similar to what the Shach is saying, and does have the din of davar sheyesh lo material. That's all. In other words, don't think that the reason, even though they're using the word chazusa, that's not the reason why this is also. It resembles more the min. It contributes a lot. It is significant. The taken, so it's called more like a min b'mino. That's all. And I think the crazy place he also brings down something similar. Even though chazusa, I think he says it's usually also b'mashu, here it does not apply. In other words, in general, it would not apply if the Isur is not Nikar. The reason why here it's a problem is because it is Nikar. But that's the only explanation given there. Okay, let's go on. There are some who question the Mechaber. They got a suffix Beitza. The Mechaber said that if it's a suffix, right, there's no din.
Even if it's a suffix, it's nothing,
no? I'm talking about the second type of suffix. The Mechaber says that if the suffix, let me see where he brings it down here. Yeah, in the second seif. I'm already in the second seif.
Wow, did we do
okay. Did we do it? I think we did it, right? Let's go over it again. In the first suffix that we discussed was a suffix who was born in Yom Tov or not. That's what we said already. It's clear that it doesn't make a difference. It's a suffix or not. That kind of a suffix still has the din of davar sheyesh lo material. But in the halacha base, we learned as follows: Yesh mi she'omer shelo amru davar sheyesh lo matir. Now we're starting to define it a little bit more davar sheyesh lo matir, where it applies and where it doesn't apply. So there's an opinion that says that davar sheyesh lo matir would not apply. Elok shamatir osid lover al kol ponim. In other words, it's going to become mutter regardless. Or there's something that you can do. You can take an action to make it mutter that does not involve great expense. Something that he has no ability to make it mutter. Or it's not sure, it's not certain that the heter will ever come, if at all. Davar sheyesh lo matir has to be something that will for sure be mutter, either because of time, at a certain given time, or because you can do something easy to bring about its heter. So what does this exclude so far, according to this opinion? If it's not easy, if what you have to do is not easy, or the time that we're expecting something to possibly be mutter does not guarantee that they will be mutter, there's a possibility that it will never become mutter, that's not a davar sheyesh lo matir. And therefore, if it gets mixed up right now, it's batel. Like anything else that is batel, b'roiv or b'shishi. It has to be something that will for sure be mutter, or something that, if I do something easy, will make it mutter. If it's not going to come about, there's any doubt about it, it's not davar sheyesh lo matir. Lefichach, he gives one example. And that is Beitza shel Safek Treifa. This is a different kind of a Safek. It's a Safek Treifa. I don't know if this is a Treifa or not. The chicken. Shenis Arva Bacheres. Beitza shel Safek Treifa Shenis Arva Bacheres. Eno bedin davar sheyesh lo matir if she'ena matim bevadai ven biyodoi. There's no way that you can make a mutter. There's no way that you can know for sure if it will be mutter. It may remain Isser. We'll find out. We may or may not. But we may find out that it's Isser. Well, guess what? Then that's not a davar sheyesh lo matir. It's not a guarantee.
So we truthfully, Hanan, Basar,
right. Right.
I'm just surprised why he doesn't Beitza here.
That's a good question. They asked that question. Yeah, they asked that question for a different reason, and maybe we'll discuss that soon. But in principle, that's what he's trying to make a point here. What's the point? That since it's not a certainty, the halacha of davar sheyesh lo matir will not apply to it.
Wait, be certainty or because it will?
Well, it may not be ever mutter.
Because there's nothing to mark.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Because it's a suffix.
Right.
Or is it an additional?
No. Because we said a suffix makes no difference. It's that it has to be for sure that after a certain point or action.
Very strange concept. He goes out of his way to say a beitza of a suffix treifa when you could simply say a beitza of a treifa.
Oh, that's another question. Yeah, enough.
Goes out of his way to say a beitza of a suffix treifa.
Yeah, but a suffix
that does not have a materian.
By a real treifa, it's mutter.
What is mutter?
By a real treifa, it's mutter. Beitza shel treifa, it's mutter.
What, to eat it?
Yeah, by taaruvos.
Well, it'll be misbatel.
It's misbatel.
Isn't he saying here?
So that's
also
what you
it'll be
can.
misbatel?
You don't want to use that as an example.
But he's saying what? A second.
Okay.
So a beta of a real treifa
a
will
real
be misbatel.
Sure.
But a beta of a suffix treifa will not be misbatel.
Will be misbatel.
So both be misbatel.
Right.
So why would the fact that the beta of a real treifa will be misbatel prevent them from using that as an example rather than
For different reasons.
Yeah. Okay. So the other reason, but not.
No.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Something that is a real treifa, it's obvious. There's no chiddush here. It's a real iser. It's bottle like anything else.
And a suffix treifa, it's a raisa.
But it could be more.
How?
If I find out that this is not it's only a suffix, I may find out that this is not a treifa. It may become mutter when I find out.
So
But
the treifa is the suffix. The fact that there's a treifa is a suffix, not the beta of that treifa.
Yes,
No,
that's correct.
I don't know
Yes,
which one
yes,
they-
that's correct. Yeah.
So it's a suffix if
It's a
it's
suffix if it's
treif.
treif or
It's
not.
not a suffix if it's
Right,
if
right.
it's,
That's correct.
information.
Yeah, right. So some ask unmechaber about the suffix based treifa situation, that there's no din of davar sheyesh lo matirim, because it may not be usher right now to begin with, and they say that this din does not really have anything to do with davar sheyesh lo matirim, because they say if it comes out that it's not a treifa, so melechatchile was never a treifa. Yeah, it was melechatchile. Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, they ask this question, and why you're bringing this in here.
Well, maybe because he says right now you're not allowed to eat it.
Exactly. Exactly.
you might
That's what the
become-
Tzemach Tzedek says. The Tzemach Tzedek says it just comes to teach you that right now we want to be mafresh you from this.
Which are we talking about?
Tzemach Tzedek. There's only one Tzemach
There are
Tzedek.
two. There's an old one.
Okay.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
You mentioned it.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, that's what there is various explanations given to that. In other words, it's not such a big question because in the end, that's the whole chiddush of davar sheyesh lo matirim. We want to prevent you from having it now when you can for sure have it in a motorway. All right. But it's a question that's asked. How is this such an example, like you asked? All right. So far, so good. What have we seen so far? Davar sheyesh lo matirim is a very unique iser that is pretty much, in many ways, limited. That it's not bottle. Except if it's a min b'sheino mino, and even that sometimes does not help you with the example of chazusa based and so forth. Now what we're going to see, what I want to do right now, in the next two seifim, even though there's a lot of information, we're going to go through them, because it's a lot, but it's not so difficult. And then we're going to review all of this anyway on Thursday.
But to summarize what we just
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
so when he's talking about, when he says beta shel suffix treifa,
Right.
the whole point of suffix treifa here, what makes it potentially something that might be thought of as yesh lo.
Yes.
That's the whole point of the suffix.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes,
In other
you're
words,
right.
It's not. He's not quoting here now in a vadai iser.
Right,
That
right.
for sure has no material.
That's
but
correct.
something that maybe you'll find out that it does have. That
it
maybe
does.
it will become mutter.
That's correct. Yeah. That's what he used. Okay, so far we've seen the limitations, and we've seen some exceptions, like min b'sheino minog. The second exception is if it's not certain that it will become ever mutter, then it's not going to be a davar sheyesh lo matir. It has to be for sure that I'm going to be able to have it. Otherwise, it's not called davar sheyesh lo matir. It's a regular issue. All right. Now let's see some additional examples. Now it becomes a little interesting, so I want to go through all of them, but we'll review it Thursday. Kli shenesa beblias iso. We brought this up a little bit. You have a keli that became also because of blias. Everybody knows what blias are, right? Absorb nevela treifus. The problem with this keli is it got mixed up. Shenis arv b'chem. It got mixed up with a whole bunch of other keli. Many. Let's just say many. Ve'ena nikar. Of course, I don't know which keli is it. I can't recognize which one it is. Bottle beroiv. Here you don't have food. You have a bittul of pots, pans. You can still apply the din of roiv in a mixture of pots or pans. And what do you have here? You have here the concern of a blia. It's still an issue. It's still something to reckon with. You have to make hagala lechatchila. You can't cook in it lechatchila, even if it's eino ben yoima, by the way. You know for sure it's also, you have to make hagala or leave it or whatever. It's treif. The b'di'evet, of course, we know it makes a difference if something is ben yom or eino ben yom. And you learned that in Basar b'cholov, right? Eino ben yom can make a big difference. B'di'evet, when you want to know what to do now with the food. But now the question is here, what do I do? What about a pot? Do I have to machshir all of them? Or do I apply bitul b'roiv? Just like I apply bitul b'roiv with food. And the answer is, you do apply bitul on pans. But wait a minute, why don't we say it's a davar sheyesh no materin? It could be mutter anyway. How could it be mutter if I make an action? That was this previous seif. I either wait for some time, the following day, for davar sheyesh no materin, or the second action, the second possibility is, I do something. If I could do something to make it mutter, let me do it. Mechaber says, no, not in this case. In this particular example, there's too much work involved. Or too much expense involved. And that we didn't include. If that action required to make this mutter is just a lot of work or expense, it's okay, it's bottle. No davar sheyesh no material.
So do I understand this correctly, that the first 24 hours are not, is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
In other words, one could say, after 24 hours, it
Right.
will only be at the Rabbanan.
Right.
But right now
We're going to get to that.
Raisa.
We're going to get to that. Obviously, the Machroinim discuss that too. But from the Mechaber himself, he doesn't say anything else other than davar sheyesh no materim does not apply here. So this is an additional exception to the halacha of davar sheyesh no materim because the action required to make it mutter is just too much expense or too much work.
And he doesn't need to pay any
As the Ramah says, too much involved, expenses, and etc. Anything that requires too much work or expense. You want to say something? Yeah.
Is he saying that to clean, if it's bittul barov, you only need,
No, obviously, now we're not talking about three here.
you had one pot with others, bittul barov.
Right, we're talking about quite a few other kalim. He didn't say how many.
Well, bittul barov, you only need,
Right,
you have a bigger number.
right.
So even if it's 3, you don't need to do it.
He doesn't distinguish here. In the Mechaber himself, he doesn't distinguish. But I think it's understood
That's
from...
quite a chiddush in regard to housework to clean already.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about Hagal.
Yeah.
Well, no. Before you even get to the hagal, you still have to clean it.
Well, normally I would think in your pots anyway, without any is.
I'm
So
going to
cleaning.
this, how much what it says, being semi-serious, how point do we say you don't have to do it anymore? It doesn't seem that much.
Wants to quantify effort.
Right, yeah.
Because
That-
if it's
that-
bittul barov, it's only...
Wants to quantify the effort that is written in my
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that, even though number of kelim I don't think is mentioned anywhere. Now here all we mentioned was the concept that if it's work involved, too much work involved, to go to to make hagolah is work. Even if theoretically it could be even 3. But I'm just assuming that we're talking about a situation where you have quite a few kelim. But you're right, in principle. Now, so this idea of that you have to use a lot of expenses that does not make it a davar sheyesh no materim, the Shach brings down the Ra'ah that he doesn't hold like this. He says you do have to make hagolah because if the blia is there, it's like the isur is nicker, so it's not bottom. That's what the Ra'ah says. The Shach doesn't seem to be concerned about it because he doesn't say that we should follow that. And the same with the other achronim. The reason why we're not really concerned about it is because if you cannot really see the isur, even though what you can do is be maflit the isur through hot water, but since you cannot really identify it, it's not called the isur is nicker, and it's still considered mixed. So even though the Ra'ah is saying, since you can make hagolah, it's like it's there, they say no. The other achronim say no, that just because you can make hagolah and be poilet the isur, which is true. You can bring about a situation where you poilet the isur, but because you cannot readily see it, then it's called still a taaruvot, where we say it's mixed and it's bottle. All right. So anyway, so this is just one of the questions on the Mechaber, one of the issues. But there is not too much. There doesn't appear to be so much machlokes in as to the din over here, except when it comes to something else. And what is that? That there's a machlokes and there's a shach and taz about you have this bunch of pots and now you're going to use them to cook. You say it's bottle. So food is going to be cooked in all the pots, including in the pot that's asar. So what's going to happen? one of the foods is going to have a blia of treifus. So the Taz is machmir. The Taz says, you know what? Me'ikar adin the mechaber, okay, it's bottle, but we have to be machmir and we have to require hagala anyway, because you may come to cook everything together. And if you do cook everything together, which you should not, by the way, right?
I understand what it means.
Let's say you used all the pots to cook.
Simultaneously.
Now what happens? There's a famous halacha later on that we'll learn, that even though bitul yovish beyovish berov is true, you can't eat them all together. So the Taz says, if I were to cook in all these pots together, I for sure have the isser, bolua, into one of the foods, into one of the tafshilim.
I don't know which tafshil.
And, it's going to get all mixed up, right? Because I don't know which one it is. I'm going to cook in all of them, it's going to get all mixed up.
Again, a question of
No, right. But still, it's for sure there. And it's similar to the other din of yovish beyovish, that even though it's bottle, but if I can't cook or I can't eat it together. So here, if I cooked in all of them and I eat it and they all get mixed up and I eat it together, it's a problem. It's a similar. The Taz wants to say it's a similar problem if I cooked in all the pots at the same time and the food gets all mixed up. No, it's not like I'm eating this, then I'm eating that. I'm getting it all together. You see the similarities.
Incidentally, I'm surprised I want to see that it'd be a problem if I'm talking about an isser became absorbed, but halav became absorbed in a meat pot.
That's also brought down
because then I'd actually be over the isser of cooking basar b'chal, which is an isser became small. You're not allowed to cook.
Yeah, that's another sheet.
That's a separate.
That's another one. That's another one that's brought. The Shach brings down that question, in that chumrah. If we're talking about an isur blua of basar and chalav, and he brings that down in the name.
If it's already Hanan, then we have the machlokes whether Hanan has a din of basar b'chalav or sharet.
Yeah,
so
the Shach. I saw that in the Shach, and that's the Mari ben Lev. That talks in his machmir in the situation of basar and chalav, if that's Biblia.
But with the Rabbi Sharim,
right?
So really, I end up with the exact situation that I would have if an isser fell into. I have an exact same situation. I have one pot that was cooked where I have isser and everything. So really, it's also if do I eat every together?
Right. That's what.
If I'm cooking in several pots. Then l'chayra, chances are it's going to be eaten by several people. Yeah. Because normally a person doesn't cook in several pots suda for himself that he's going to eat all at once by himself. So either it's going to be eaten over a period of time or it's going to be eaten by several people. Right. So ultimately I don't end that problem.
Yeah, anyways, but the Taz says it this way.
I understand.
The Taz says that you cannot intentionally, now even though you can cook in all the pots, according to the din, you cannot mix all the food together at once. Because you're going to be toim the tama iser. Vadai. In the same way as the other halacha of yovish beyovish, even though they're bottle, you can't eat them at the same time, according to some. Right? All right.
So you can't have some of each at the same time. Yeah. Even if you're not going to eat the whole thing, just having some of each.
So the Taz says misafik, the Taz requires hagala for all the king in order that this should not happen, that you should cook them all together. That's the reason why he requires hagala over here. If you have a keli that got mixed in. Of what?
He doesn't seem to hold on the issue. He seems to take the opposite.
For a different reason. For a different reason, right. He says, you know what? We have a different problem over here, even though that may be true, but it could be happen. So he makes his gzeira here. Now what's interesting about the Taz versus the Shach here, and this halacha, is the Taz says that this is a requirement even if it's already Eino ben Yoimai. Yeah.
Now, what is the concern?
Yeah, because of a Rashba. Eventually we will see, I think there's a Rashba about it, that even if it's Eino ben Yoimai lechatchila, and the din of lechatchila of Eino ben Yoimai, to eat from it.
Would be even...
Lechatchila.
So you have to eat.
Right, yeah. Right.
So that would have to appear, the Taz should it say that Basar B'chala?
Yeah,
or
okay.
Yeah, I should say it there?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't look at it. I didn't look at that halacha yet. But I briefly saw that the Taz is machmir, and even if we're talking about Eino ben Yoimai. In other words, don't think that Eino ben Yoimai will help you over here, right? Even if it's Eino ben Yoimai, I required the Hagala over here. Whereas the Shach says no. That he would allow in a situation it's Eino Ben Yoma. Actually, I think
to eat, not to cook, or to cook also.
To cook, yeah, everything. If it's Eino Ben Yoma, becomes it's a different halacha.
I'm just saying, Basar b'chalav, l'atchila, you're not allowed to cook atu.
Right, atu. Right.
But to eat, if it was cooked,
right,
then you're allowed to eat l'hatchila.
Yeah. No, the shach seems to be mekel here in the case of Eino Ben Yoma. To cook and to mix, both Eino Ben Yoma, not just to eat. According to the shach, if it's Eino Ben Yoma, because remember the Mechaber says they're bottle meikar adin. There's a problem if it's Ben Yoma, because by the way, I don't remember who. Maybe I'll remember soon. We'll go through it. If it's bottle, or if it's not bottle, why don't you say just wait for tomorrow? Why don't say that's a double sheishul material?
Was my question.
Why don't you say that? Wait for tomorrow anyway for it to become an Eino Ben Yoma.
That was my question.
It was.
Double sheishul material. It's a doraisa right now, and tomorrow it'll become a question of l'atchila because of the rabbanan.
Okay. So there's various explanations for it. I'm going to give you the simple one, like that. We're going to learn the Ramah right now. A few minutes left. The Dover Sheyishim does not apply in an Isur Balua.
So then you don't even have the problem.
Exactly. So the question is,
you don't have the problem. Why does it appear?
Right. Why doesn't it appear here? For a different reason. We're going to. You need the other explanation too. What was the other explanation? It's a Rashba. The other you hear the question? Very good question. If we're going to soon learn in the Ramah that a Dover Balua does not have a Dover Sheishlam, there's no Dover Sheishlam material, then why do we need this whole halacha over here? Just tell us that, because that's a Rashba, and we need that Rashba for situations when it's not an Isur Balua. Because what are we saying? We've been saying that here the explanation given is what? That it's too much work, much expense. Nobody talked about the Isur Balua over here. Okay? That was not the reason. That was not the reason. It happens to be that has an Isur Balua. So we need that halacha for situations which do not involve an Isur Balua, but do involve effort. Okay? You understand? Because otherwise you have a good question. We're going to soon learn in the Ramah that an Isur Balua does not have a double shishim material. Wait a minute. We just had an Isur Balua in the Qihen. No. That was for a different reason, which we also need to mention. In the event you have a situation where there's no Isur Balua, but there's a lot of effort and work involved or expense.
By a davar sheishlo material.
By davar sheishlo material only. So that's a rashba. We need that rashba for other situations. That's why. But it's a good question. When you first say, wait a minute, Isur Balua. You need both. Okay? So that's what it is. Interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
So the Chayra, according to this, by an Isur Balua, we really don't need the Hagala. With respect to davar sheishlo material.
Yeah, you don't need Hagala.
Get rid of davar sheishlo
material. You don't really need. Yeah. But the question is whether should you wait for the following day. So Lemaisa, I think the Shach and Tas say you should wait for a variety of reasons. You don't need to, according to the Mechaber, and you don't say wait for sure because it's the davar sheishlo material because it doesn't apply to Isur Balua. But why not wait anyway? And that's what we pass. A lot of the Achronim, I saw Achronim right and left, speaking about just wait till it's Eino Ben Yoma, you have less of a problem. According to everybody. Even though the Taz will tell you his own shita about making a gala for other reasons and chashash. But the Ikar Adin, you're safer. You're for sure safer if you wait a day.
Just to recall,
right.
We're not talking about a single pot that was used to cook an Isser, whether you could use it right away or we're talking about a pot that became mixed. Other pots. Right. You don't know which pot it is.
Right.
And is it misbattled in Roiv or in Roiv probably?
Right. Yes, definitely.
So can you disregard the fact that one of these pots was used to cook an Isser even though it's Ben Yomo? So they say wait till it's Eino Ben Yomo.
Right.
And then you're still using the Roiv.
Right.
Because if it was a pot, one single pot that was used and there is no other pot,
right.
There are no other pots
right.
involved, then even the Eino Ben Yomo used to do Hagala.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah. Now, the Shach also goes on to explain another thing about, also in the Shem of the Raw, the Kli should not be bottled, not only because the Isur is like it's a Nikar, but because it's going to for sure give, if you end up using the kli, it's going to for sure give tam in the heter. And that's when you came in and said, very good, Basar b'chalav, it can make a big difference. But he didn't get into that. But according to the Ra'ah, we're always concerned that if you do end up cooking in it, you're going to be putting the Isser, Balua, into the heter. Pri Chodesh also asks this question on the Mechaber. In the end, if you cook in it, again, only if you cook in it, that's what's going to happen. So there's an interesting Pnei Yeshua. I saw an interesting Pnei Yeshua. Pnei Yeshua asks, I think, on that hechetim, on that possibility, you're going to be cooking it. But wait a minute, you're going to be cooking it? I have a solution. What's the problem here? You can always use a kapela to taste it. Kapela? Why can't we just, and that should take care of the whole problem.
You'll have to taste for me.
Yeah. So, what's the answer? The crazy place he answers, which is a very important point by Kafela, actually. It's a very interesting, I don't know how much we discussed it in the past. You cannot always rely on a Kafela because it could be that the plita is never very, very strong. There's always a possibility that the keli will not be poilet enough tam. Here we're learning about tam. We're learning about bitul shishim and how much you need to be mevatel the tam. Did we ever think for a moment that possibly, depending on how long it cooked, maybe not all the tam came out?
Yes, we have that. We have that by something that is necessary falls from one pot into the other pots.
Okay, you're right. That's very true. In those kind of situations, we did discuss it. That's true. So, but that's what the Pnei Yeshua, that's what the crazy place explains on that you never know. So the kapela may not always be a good solution for this. Others say very simple. We don't use kapela. Today we don't use kapela. That's too simplistic. The crazy place, he gets into it. Says, it just may not be such a great solution after all.
The crazy place's argument. I always wonder about that.
Yeah.
The crazy place's argument would then also offset the 60 for the very same. I don't know if everything came out. Maybe only a minute amount came out.
Right.
So the 60 doesn't help me because the majority is still in the pot.
Yeah, but once we identify, if we can identify one pot, it saves us from the rest.
Oh yeah, sure.
Everybody agrees that if somehow you were able to identify through tam something, it would be usser.
Yeah.
That particular one would be usser. Just because it was bottle doesn't mean now it's mutter. Once you've tasted, but I tasted now. We don't say it's bottle. You taste it, throw it away. Can we make a gullah to it? What? Yeah, because remember here we're talking about various pots. You don't have shishim in the one pot.
You would have to have 16 pots.
Yeah. Right, yeah. So anyway, the Shach doesn't seem to be concerned about this Ra'ah either. There is a concern about what you mentioned, the Basar b'chalav in the Mari ben Leiv. Yeah. Also, another nekud over here that the Shach brings down, this time in the name of the Ma'aril. The Ma'aril is concerned about another issue. We talked about difficulties and we talked about expense. Ma'aril seems to be saying that Hagala is a very small expense. He says that's not a real expense. That's not a what? Yeah, that's not a big effort, right? Sure, understand. So that's not a good example according to the Maril. And it's still Davar Sheish Lo Matim according to Maril. The Shach brings it down that perhaps you have to really be chash to what the Maril says unless you're dealing with a hefsed meruba. He says if it's not a real hefsed meruba, you should consider what the Maril says. It's not a big deal. And maybe that's what we would include the situation of 3 in your case. Not just expense, in number of kalim too, perhaps.
So the hefsed meruba, is it also now in the pot? The food that you cooked is it natural?
No. Hefsed meruba, in other words, what he meant over there more in the hefsed is if it's really a lot more involved. Time and have to hire somebody. That's what he meant by hefsed meruba. Not
what was in
a tip. No, not in the dollar.
Okay.
Not in a tip. I don't think so. Actually, I don't think so.
The effort and the other could be.
It could be. I didn't think about that. It could be. That's a good point too. If the whole pot would also be being a hefsed meruba, then also that hefsed meruba is hefsed meruba, so it may still apply. But I thought the way I understood the Maril is it was talking about this particular example just by itself does not constitute a big deal. But if it would be a big deal, then yes, whether it's in expense money or whether it's labor intensive. Yeah. So anyway, so the Shach says, go ahead, be machmir like the Maril, and that's where he says, and he suggests to wait for the king to be Eino ben Yomo. then it would be mutter min Torah. Yeah. So we already talked about what about the Ramos tam. Tam doesn't have it. It's not a double sheshel material, so we're going to get to that. So we're going to see it inside. Okay. The next seif was kli shenesa beblias isur. No, we spoke about that. The next seif was yesh mishomim de lo shaykh dover sheyesh lo matirin echo shemayko amaycho miskalka. This is the last seif of the Siman before the Ramah. Mechaber's words, an additional area where dover sheyesh lo matirin does not apply is if the maychel, the food item, will be miskalkel. It will be ruined. It will become spoiled by the time you wait. If you wait, then it doesn't apply. Okay. So that's an additional area where. Well, there's a small chiddush here. Because here we have similar to the Maril. Yeah, we have a.
No, the hefsed is even here. It's the food itself.
This halacha, the Beis Yosef, this Mechaber takes it from the Mordechai, I believe. Yeah, he brings it down here in the front. That the Mechaber took it from the Mordechai. And the Beis Yosef talks about it, but it's from the Mordechai. And that's all he says. But the Bach brings that. That the way it's understood in the Beis Yosef, the way it's understood from the Halacha, that this applies even if it's not spoiled completely. Even if it's just a little bit spoiled, it's already not a double sheshel material. Whereas the Yam Shel Shloima does bring down that if it's a little bit okay, even if it's spoiled, but if it's still a little bit okay, then you have to be machmer. So in this last Halacha, Michael miskalke or not, you sometimes have to evaluate the situation.
Spoiled or just not as good as...
No, a little bit spoiled. Yeah, no, a little bit spoiled, but it's not completely spoiled. Okay. So that's a very interesting halacha, and it could happen in a situation where it's double sheshel material, but usually it's not very common. Okay, so that was all the mechaber in this siman. Now we have a long Ramah, some very interesting examples, and we'll go through them briefly, and then we'll review it again on Thursday. Ramah. We spoke about that. Only if the isur is be'ein, you can. In other words, it was there. Or sheish adayim mamoshus. Ha'isur betaruvet. So you had the real mamoshus of the isur in the mixture. Aval taima bottle. If all you have, the piece was removed, for example, and all you have is the plita, all you have is the tam, the flavoring of the isur. On flavor itself, you don't say double sheish material. If it's bottle now. Okay? So far so good. That's the first halacha in the Ramah. That davar sheish lo matir does not apply to tam. And does that sound familiar? Something recently we learned about tam, isur balua, by chaticha ruya liskabed, also does not apply. Right. Remember?
Yeah.
Okay. V'chein im ein isura machmas atzmoi, which is similar to tam. In other words, the isur is not because of the gufa isur, it's bottle. What's an example of any surah machmas atzmoi? Lachen chaticho shelo nimlecho toich shloisha yomim. A chaticho that was not salted within 3 days. And that of course poses a problem. What's the only solution, by the way? I don't know if you learned Hilchos Melicha a little bit. What happens if meat was not salted? You can roast it. Yeah, roast it. Yeah, you can roast it. That's the only tikkun. You're never going to be able to cook it again. You can't. The salt that you apply, if you apply, will not work to draw out the blood that's in it. Just the nature of the meat.
If you wash.
Doesn't help. If during the 3 days it either completely frozen or you've been soaking it, then it's fine. But once it's been left like that, okay, without being salted, the salt that you apply later will not get everything out. You have no choice but to use tzli, roast, or an open fire where any blood, and the fire will completely burn out everything there. That's the only way it will extract it. But you can't cook. You won't be able to cook it. So therefore, it's also. But it's not also complete. I have a solution. But we're talking about a situation where this chaticha got mixed up with other chatichas, and you don't know which one it is. How is this a davar sheyesh lo matirin, a potential one? Because you can roast it, so you can deal with it. But I don't want to roast all the meat. Hoy ilu muteres letzli, and they should be davar sheyesh lo matirin. Afilu ochi betela. It's still bottle. It's not a davar sheyesh lo matirin. It's not isur machmas atzmoi. The ein isuro elo machmas dam habalua bo. So here it's not tam. Here it's the blia. Okay. which is also by Chaticha Roidus Kab in the same halacha. It's not the Gufa Iser. If it's not the Gufa Iser, the Dover Sheyesh Lo Matirim halacha does not apply to it.
In other words, what's ushering is blood in the meat, and the blood does not have a material in the meat.
Right. It's a.
The one who has a material is the meat.
No.
But it's not the meat that's ushering it. It's the dominant, and the dominant does not have a material. The dam has to be removed. You can't. You have no way of even by sleep it has to be removed.
Yeah. That's a question. Yeah. There's a famous question about the Nesar or the Oyser. What do we use?
Yeah,
did you learn that? I mean,
before with the salt and so on. The salt that has the blood. Yeah. The Oser cannot usher more than the Nesar cannot usher more than the Oser.
Yeah. And it's similar here. This is somewhat, I think, related to this too a little bit. But either way, it's an Isser Balua. The Osher Shlomatim does not apply to it. The Chachamim were not misaken that it should, and therefore it's bottle. If the halachas of bottle apply here. Kol iser shelo hoya nikar koydem shenis arv. This is, I think, the last halacha of the Ramah. Any iser that was not recognized before it got mixed, have a bottle. It's bottle afal pi shudover sheyesh lo matirin. There's actually another one. What's an example of kol iser shelo hoya nikar koydem shenis arv? You have wine that's being squeezed from grapes on Shabbos. It's happening. It's coming out. It's also
oozing out. Right?
It's oozing out. It's also it's also right, oozing out. But it got mixed with other juice that was already there, so you were not able to see the iser before. Lo hoya nikar koydem shenis arev. Right? Have a bottle shudover afabi shudover sheyesh lo matirim. It does not apply here. We'll get into that a little bit more Thursday when we review it. But that's another exception called Isa Shlohoyo Nikar Kodem Shenis Arab. It was not really recognizable in itself as an Isser in the very, very beginning. It only became Isser later on by coming out. And by that time it got mixed in. It has to have been recognized as an Isser to begin with, in the very start. You follow me? It was not. It was grapes. It was whatever. It was not something that was usher in the very first stage of its life. It oozed out, and it oozed out on Shabbos. It then became usher, and as it's oozing out, it's getting mixed. So it's called Isser Shelo Hoya Nikar Koydem Shenis Arev, that it was an Isser. It's not. It's bottle. And the last one is Mishenoda Medover Echad, when it's Arab somebody that was neither from something. He doesn't want to have it. He got mixed in because he can ask to be matir the neder.
So this is a chumrah.
Okay. This one is right. Mikra dover sheish lo matirin. The efshel lishol al nidroi. I'm sorry. Here's one more. I thought we were done. Dover sheish lo heter v'choizer v'nesar. It will become usher again. What's an example of something that will become usher, become mutter, become usher again? Chametz. Chametz v'Pesach. Lo mikra davar sheyesh lo matirin. That this is a big machlokes. V'yesh cholkim b'zeh. The Rambam. Lo mikra davar sheyesh lo matirin. Also, Elohim ken hutar lemi shenesar. It's not a davar sheyesh lo matirin unless it became mutar for the one who it was asur. Aval inisha le'echad le'olam asur. If it for one person ever became, if it will always remain for one person asur, afal gav shemutar lacherim, even though it will be mutar to others. So somebody who was mevashu b'Shabbos and mezid, as you know, the halacha we paskin is that for him it's asur le'olam. For others, they can be in benefit from it after Shabbos. So here you have an example of something that will be asur for somebody forever. Davar sheish lo matirim does not apply to it. If it got mixed up on Shabbos by mistake, of course by mistake, not intentionally, and it's something that for him will always be asur, it's not a davar sheish lo matirim. So the question is, that what we talk about is, when we say it's not a davar sheyesh lo matirim right now, because for that guy it's always asur, does it mean that for him it's also mutter now?
No, wait. No, wait a second. It became mixed in now with something else.
Right.
And what we're talking about is whether the mixture, the taaruvot.
The mixture. Is this a davar sheyesh lo matirim? Right.
Well, why shouldn't it be misbottled for him?
This is
he is not allowed to eat this by itself. it became mixed up with other things. Is the whole mixture now forbidden for
So we say there's no davar sheyesh lo matirim
my
over
question
here.
would be the other way around.
One second. I did not explain it right. This is a davar. This is not a davar sheyesh lo matirin.
Legabe, the person who cooked it.
No, we're talking about the gabe, the other people.
Legabe, the other people.
Okay, sure. Because this has a limitation that for one person it will always be usher.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. That was going to be my question.
Right.
Legabe me, are we calling it not?
But that's a question. But I'm beginning to explain that. First, let's talk about the other people. For them, for sure, it will be mutter after Shabbos.
Right.
So, do we call it a davar sheyesh lo matirim? The answer is no.
That's
what the Rama is saying. So they can have it now. The question is, can he have it now?
Can he have it at all?
Can he have it at all? I mean, he can't have that
by itself
forever. But now that it's mixed, that's the question. That's another question. But we'll talk about it.
So Lagabe him, what would be the havamina that he cannot have it once it's mixed? Why would it not be mispatel in steam?
Yeah, well, that's
the only reason we have right now why it would not be mispatel in steam because it's davar sheyesh lo matirim, and it's not a davar sheyesh lo matirim. So by him, I would never have the suspicion that he can't.
But there's a question in that. Yeah, because it's all a knas. It's all a.
Well, if it's a knas, it's a different halacha.
It's another, of course.
Davar sheyesh lo matirim halacha.
It's similar to it. But anyway, that's the Ramah in the various situations that we have. We'll review all of this in Mr. Shem on Thursday, but I just want to talk a little bit about this one halacha about chametz that he mentioned. Chametz is a big machlokes actually if it's a davar sheyesh lo matirim. Now, when does it make a difference? After Pesach, it's going to be aser anyway. Als knas. If I'm avar leva Pesach. The question is, it's the nafkamina, if you hold davar sheyesh lo matirim or not, and Bechaber, by the way, holds it's not a davar sheyesh lo matirim. The Rambam says it is a davar sheyesh lo matirim. The Ran says it's not a davar. There's a big machlokes here. The question is on Erev Pesach after Chatzos, after Shal Shishis. Because in Pesach we know we're machmir chometz also b'mashehu. So regardless, it makes no difference. So when does it make a difference? Before Pesach, after Chatzos. That's when it makes a difference. If you hold right now, chometz is a davar sheyesh lo matirim, which means when? After Pesach, then you can't have it. It's not bottle now. If you say that chometz before Pesach is not a davar sheyesh lo matirim, then it's bottle before Pesach. That's a big difference.
In other words, if I cooked...
Now the Ramban says even though after Pesach it will still be asur, it's not really mutter, it's only asur because of a knas.
So that's not on Pesach itself.
Not on Pesach. Everybody agrees that on Pesach it's asur b'mashu. So if the Ramban says even though I hold it's a davar sheyesh lo matirim, but wait a minute, it will never really become mutter even after Pesach because of a knas. He said, right? He says that's only because of a knas that something chametz may not be mutter after Pesach. But in reality, it does become mutter. Chametz is not asur after Pesach. So because it does become mutter, he holds it's a davar sheyesh lo matirim. Chametz is chametz in itself.
So he's passing l'chumra.
So the Ramban passes l'chumra. The Ran says no. The Ran holds that it's not a davar sheyesh lo matirim.
And we're talking about chametz that was...
And the Mechaber also says it's not davar sheyesh lo matirim. And because he paskins that any chametz that got mixed in before Pesach is bottle. So we learn from that Mechaber holds like the Shita. No, that's a separate issue, of course, when you're on Pesach. So we see from that the Mechaber is also not machmir to consider chametz at the Rosh Hashanah. But this is a big machlokes. It's an interesting machlokes as to what happens if it did become mixed before Pesach. That's the only time that this becomes. Let me just show a review. These halachas on Thursday.